In the world of startups, few names have become as synonymous with scandal as Elizabeth Holmes. Once hailed as the next Steve Jobs, her company, Theranos, promised to revolutionize healthcare with a groundbreaking blood testing technology. Investors poured in millions, and Holmes became the youngest self-made female billionaire. But behind the glossy image was a web of deceit, manipulation, and ultimately one of the biggest corporate frauds in recent history. Early life and education. Elizabeth Holmes was born in 1984 in Washington, D.C., to a family with deep political and corporate ties. Her father, Christian Holmes IV, worked for Enron, the energy company that collapsed in one of the largest accounting scandals in U.S. history. After Enron's fall, he moved on to work for various government agencies, including USAID. Holmes' mother was a congressional committee staffer. With such a background, it's no surprise that Holmes was ambitious from a young age. By high school, she had already told friends and family that she wanted to be a billionaire and was determined to create something world-changing. In 2002, Holmes enrolled at Stanford University to study chemical engineering. It was during her time at Stanford that she began to develop the idea that would become Theranos. She believed that blood testing, an essential part of healthcare, was inefficient, painful, and ripe for disruption. Her vision was to create a device that could run hundreds of tests with just a single drop of blood, replacing traditional venous blood draws. Holmes's personality and influence. What set Holmes apart wasn't just her ambition, but her ability to charm and inspire. Known for her deep, baritone voice, which some believe was intentionally lowered to project authority, Holmes crafted a persona that drew people in. She famously wore black turtlenecks in homage to Steve Jobs, cultivating a minimalist image that became part of her brand. Holmes's ability to attract high-profile supporters was extraordinary. Her board of directors included former U.S. Secretaries of State Henry Kissinger and George Shultz, as well as top-ranking military officials like General James Mattis. These powerful figures were drawn to her vision of transforming healthcare, which she framed as not just a business opportunity, but a moral obligation. However, Holmes' unyielding confidence also created a culture of secrecy at Theranos. Employees who questioned her vision were silenced or pushed out, and this suppression of dissent would later contribute to the company's downfall. The birth of Theranos. Holmes dropped out of Stanford at the age of 19 and used her tuition money to start Theranos in 2003. The name, a combination of therapy and diagnosis, reflected her goal of revolutionizing healthcare. Set up in Palo Alto, the company quickly attracted attention. Theranos promised to change the way blood testing worked. It developed a small device, the Edison, which supposedly could run a wide array of tests from just a drop of blood. Investors saw enormous potential, as this device could eliminate the need for large blood samples and lengthy lab work. Holmes's ability to sell this vision was remarkable. By 2014, she had raised over $700 million from high-profile investors, including media mogul Rupert Murdoch and Oracle founder Larry Ellison. Theranos was valued at $9 billion, and Holmes, as the largest shareholder, became a self-made billionaire. She graced the covers of magazines like Forbes and Fortune, hailed as the youngest self-made female billionaire in history. Despite all the praise and money, there was a problem. The Edison device didn't work. Theranos claimed it could conduct more than 240 tests, but behind closed doors, the device produced inconsistent and unreliable results. Medical professionals and employees raised concerns, but their warnings were ignored. In many cases, Theranos wasn't even using the Edison device to run blood tests. Instead, they used commercial machines from other manufacturers, but claimed the results were from their proprietary technology. This deception was at the heart of the scandal. For patients, the consequences were serious. Many received inaccurate diagnoses, leading to incorrect treatments or unnecessary anxiety. The lack of reliability in Theranos' technology put lives at risk. In 2015, Wall Street Journal reporter John Carreyrou began investigating Theranos after receiving a tip from a former employee. His exposé revealed that the company's technology didn't work as advertised, and that Holmes and her executive team were misleading investors, regulators, and patients. Carreyrou's reporting set off a series of investigations. Federal agencies, including the FDA, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and the Securities and Exchange Commission, began scrutinizing Theranos' operations. What they found was a web of lies. Around the time Theranos' scandal was unfolding, the world was grappling with another significant crisis: the 2015 Syrian refugee crisis. Millions of people were fleeing the war-torn country, seeking asylum in Europe, and sparking one of the largest humanitarian crises of the decade. While the global media focused on the refugee situation, the Theranos scandal began to attract attention in Silicon Valley and beyond. Just as the world was searching for solutions to the refugee crisis, investors and healthcare professionals were seeking a breakthrough in medical technology, hoping Holmes' company could deliver. But just like the false promises made to solve a humanitarian issue, Theranos' promises of revolutionizing healthcare were nothing more than illusions. The SEC charges and legal fallout. In 2018, the SEC charged Holmes and former Theranos president Ramesh Sunny Balwani with massive fraud. According to the SEC, they had engaged in an elaborate scheme to deceive investors, doctors, and patients. They exaggerated or made false claims about the capabilities of their technology and the financial health of the company. Holmes agreed to settle the charges without admitting wrongdoing. She paid a $500,000 fine, returned millions of shares, and relinquished her control over Theranos. But this was only the beginning of her legal troubles. Criminal charges and trial. In June 2018, Holmes and Balwani were indicted on criminal charges of wire fraud and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. The indictment alleged that they engaged in a multi-million-dollar scheme to defraud investors and patients. Holmes' trial was delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic and later because she became pregnant. In September 2021, her trial finally began. Holmes claimed she never intended to deceive anyone and that she believed in Theranos' technology. She also testified that she had been manipulated and controlled by Balwani, who she claimed was abusive during their personal relationship. The verdict. In January 2022, Elizabeth Holmes was found guilty on 4 counts of fraud, including defrauding investors. She was acquitted on charges related to defrauding patients, and the jury was deadlocked on several other counts. Holmes now faces up to 11 years in prison. Theranos' legacy. The rise and fall of Theranos is a cautionary tale about the culture of Silicon Valley, where fake it until you make it is a common ethos. Investors, lured by the promise of breakthrough technology, often overlooked the red flags. Holmes's charisma and connections blinded people to the fact that there was little evidence her technology actually worked. The healthcare industry and patients paid the highest price. Many received inaccurate diagnoses and unnecessary treatments, all because of a technology that was supposed to make testing faster, cheaper, and more accessible. Regulatory bodies like the FDA have since tightened their scrutiny of healthcare startups, but the damage Theranos caused won't be forgotten soon. Elizabeth Holmes' story is one of extraordinary ambition, manipulation, and downfall. From being lauded as a visionary to facing criminal charges, her rise and fall reflect not just the dangers of blind faith and innovation, but the consequences of valuing charisma and vision over integrity and results.